Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sonny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases.
For more, we go to our chief Sonny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Sonny Hostin probably thought she was having a rough day. Then Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus arrived with flamethrowers of sarcasm, turning the whole scene into a full-on comedy roast. Her husband's $450 million 0-cents court scandal was just the opening act. What came next was pure, unfiltered humiliation served piping hot. Tyrus unleashed his brutal jabs without mercy, while Gutfeld kept up his rapid-fire mockery like a pro. And Sonny? Her silence in the face of all that could easily snag her an Oscar for Best Poker Face. But what scandalous detail sent everything spiraling? Let's just say this courtroom chaos runs way deeper than anyone expected. From hidden bank accounts to explosive legal battles, it's a web of drama you won't believe. Want me to break down the wildest twists?
Only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And, you know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she was.
Sonny Hostin has spent years on The View playing the role of the Supreme Court of daytime TV. Gavel in one hand, moral superiority in the other. She doesn't just dish out opinions, she hands down sentences. One wrong take from you, and you're practically banned from brunch. But this week, the self-declared queen of legal virtue found herself caught in a scandal of her own making. A $450 million 0-cents courtroom catastrophe starring none other than her own husband. The very courtroom where she's been passing judgment suddenly turned into a stage for her family's drama, and the irony is almost too rich to ignore.
Or man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
Cue the popcorn and cue Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus firing up their sarcasm engines like they're ready to roast Mount Olympus itself. Sonny's spent years perfecting the art of outrage on The View. Outraged, incensed, flabbergasted, whatever it takes to claim the moral high ground on a show that's more emotional cage match than civil discourse. But now, her husband's allegedly tangled in a financial fiasco so massive it makes FTX look like a bake sale, and suddenly it's all about privacy and due process. Imagine that. The queen of courtroom verdict suddenly playing defense mum's the word, and the tough talk takes a coffee break. The hypocrisy couldn't be thicker if it tried.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sonny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sonny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sonny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
When someone else is under fire, it's all righteous fury and thinly veiled contempt. But when it's her own husband, crickets. The loudest legal voice on The View has suddenly discovered the beauty of silence. Bravo. Now enter stage right, Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus, two men with enough sarcasm between them to power a small country. And they're not about to miss the chance to sink their teeth into this hypocrisy sandwich.
Makes Sonny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by The View's gravitational pull.
The timing is just too perfect. Gutfeld, who has built a career on exposing media hypocrisy with the finesse of a stand-up comic and the precision of a sniper, practically threw a party on air. And Tyrus? He might as well have brought marshmallows to roast over the flaming wreckage of Sonny's credibility. Let's talk about this $450 million 0-cent scandal, shall we? According to swirling reports and very animated social media threads, Sonny's husband has allegedly found himself at the heart of a courtroom nightmare, so sprawling it makes Enron look like a clerical error. Allegations range from financial mismanagement to possible fraud, but who's counting? Certainly not Sonny, who suddenly has less to say about legal accountability than a malfunctioning Alexa. It's as if someone unplugged her inner prosecutor and replaced it with dial tone. It's not just that the scandal is enormous, though it is. It's so perfectly ironic. This is a woman who once made a career dissecting the legal woes of others like a hawk circling roadkill. When a Republican gets sued, Sonny's already halfway through her opening statement. But when it's her own backyard going up in smoke, suddenly it's not the time to speculate. That's not just ironic, that's practically performance art. Greg Gutfeld didn't waste a second. He launched into a segment that was less news commentary and more roast battle.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So instead,
if hypocrisy were a sport, Sonny just won the Olympics. He dissected the double standard with the enthusiasm of a kid unwrapping Christmas presents, and you could practically hear Tyrus in the background sharpening his verbal machete. And oh, did he swing it! Tyrus never one to hold back. He delivered zingers with the casual confidence of someone who's seen too much daytime TV and decided to fight back. He didn't just call out the scandal, he called out the smugness, the self-righteousness, and the collapse of credibility that came with it. When the Queen of Condescension loses her crown to a scandal of this magnitude, you can bet Tyrus will be there with a velvet pillow to collect it. Let's not forget The View co-hosts the rest of the panel. Those paragons of progressive outrage went from passionate defenders of justice to a choir of silence in record time. Joy Behar, usually loud enough to be heard in the next zip code, looked like she'd seen a ghost. Whoopi Goldberg, normally brimming with monologues about morality, barely managed to shrug. Apparently, when Sonny's name is on the legal docket, the outrage meter runs out of batteries. These are the same people who once held a multi-segment tantrum because a conservative politician mispronounced a word.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sonny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They called him Hitler, they call these things. America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sonny.
But a $450 million 0-cent case involving one of their own? Suddenly it's all very complicated, nuanced. Even how convenient. Meanwhile, social media caught on like wildfire, memes flooded in. Twitter didn't just roast her, it flam her guff. Greg Gutfeld, ever the opportunist, used the moment to address a larger point. Media elitism, the tendency of public figures to scream accountability for everyone but themselves. The moral high ground is only fun when you're the one looking down, not when it's sinking under your feet. He pointed out, in delightful deadpan, that for a show built on truth and transparency, The View is suddenly developing a very selective form of laryngitis. Tyrus followed up with a rant so dry it could qualify as desert terrain. He mocked the idea of Sonny giving legal advice to viewers while allegedly helping draft statements about her husband's misunderstood financial activities. The only thing more confusing than the charges might be Sonny's moral compass, which now spins faster than a politician in a polygraph chair.
End of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm going to go, slave owner! Kat, I just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise. You think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better. Okay, here's the thing. One thing, and I would have even actually not give her any is she said, well, like, I guess that's just what, like, they did back then.
Yeah.
She should have followed that up with saying something along the lines of, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before.
And the cherry on top, The View pretended it didn't happen. Not even a segment, not even a sentence. They could dedicate 20 minutes to Taylor Swift's ex-boyfriends, but not 1 minute to the $450 million 0-cents elephant rampaging through Sonny's personal life. Maybe they were just being classy, or maybe they were being cowardly. You decide. Gutfeld closed his segment with what might be the most poetic bit of irony TV has seen in years. He pondered, ever so innocently, if Sonny would like to come on his show and talk about the value of accountability. The invitation, of course, was dripping with sarcasm, irony, and enough shade to make sunglasses mandatory. And Tyrus? He simply leaned in, looked at the camera, and gave one of those signature smirks that says, "We told you so." But it's not just about Sonny. This scandal is a mirror for the larger hypocrisy parade marching through mainstream media. These talking heads love to paint themselves as beacons of justice, but when the lights hit their own skeletons, it's suddenly theater of the absurd. They quote laws like scripture until someone points out their own commandments are printed on toilet paper.
It's not even that. And The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and the, was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back.
Sonny's defenders argue she shouldn't be judged for her husband's actions. And sure, on paper that sounds fair, but this is the same woman who dissected the families of political rivals like she was auditioning for CSI Political Hypocrisy. Suddenly she wants the benefit of context. That's not just a double standard, that's a double-decker of irony with a side of denial. The fallout has only just begun. More details are likely to emerge, and Sonny may have to do more than just pout through commercial breaks. Maybe a public statement, maybe a brief leave, maybe just an increase in her resting smug face. Whatever happens, the credibility hit is already atomic. And let's be honest, The View was never exactly a pillar of journalistic integrity, but this scandal just yanked the curtain off whatever was left of its credibility and revealed a group of panelists scrambling to protect their own like it's a daytime mafia. If you tuned in expecting self-awareness, forget it. These are people who could trip over their own contradictions and still blame Republicans. The idea that they might reflect, admit hypocrisy, or even laugh at their own absurdity is as likely as Sonny turning in her husband's bail paperwork on live TV.
That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word son in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
If The View had a mute button for awkward scandals, Sonny Hostin slammed it like her reputation depended on it, which, in this case, it actually did. Suddenly, the queen of legal monologues, interruptions, and unsolicited law school reenactments decided that now was the time for strategic silence. The same woman who could filibuster her way through a 7-clip clip of a squirrel sneezing on Capitol Hill somehow forgot how to speak when the topic involved a certain high-profile $450 million 0-cents courtroom drama starring her very own husband. Coincidence? Sure. And Pigs just launched a startup. Gone were the smug cross-examinations, gone were the legal buzzwords. No one asked for Sonny. The eternal justice warrior was now Sonny, the human screensaver. Viewers watched in disbelief as she perfected the art of blinking slowly and rearranging her note cards into the shape of a legal plea deal. It was like watching a defense attorney play charades during a tax audit. Every sideways glance, every suspicious sip from her mug, every twitchy shuffle screamed, "Please don't ask me about the giant felon-shaped elephant tap dancing through this segment." And her body language? Let's just say she was giving full-on courtroom mime. Arms crossed tighter than a tax loophole. Shoulders tense enough to slice deli meat. One moment, she's nodding like a bobblehead at a law conference. The next, she's zoning out so hard you'd think she was counting ceiling tiles for legal advice.
She is shaming descendants of this. Will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee.
Somewhere between Whoopi's eye rolls and Joy's derailed tangents, Sunny sat frozen like she'd just seen her husband's bail terms etched on her cue cards. And the best part? When things got spicy, when any topic veered even 10 inches into corruption, fraud, or high-profile embarrassment, Sunny developed a sudden interest in staring into the abyss. She had that look on her face like she was trying to telepathically disappear. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Viewers saw it, Twitter saw it, Greg Gutfeld saw it, and Gutfeld doesn't even blink. Let's be honest, Sunny's usual MO is to hijack a conversation mid-sentence with, actually, that's not how due process works. But now, the only thing she's lawyering up is her facial expression, because, oops, turns out the due process in question is happening to her own husband. And in court, the interruptions that once made her the loudest voice in the room have now become the ghosts of her credibility. She sits, she blinks, she drinks from that oversized mug like it's spiked with vanishing cream. Meanwhile, viewers sit on the edge of their seats, wondering if she'll finally snap and yell objection at her own reflection. The silence isn't golden, it's desperate. A desperate attempt to dodge, deflect, and outblink a scandal that's way too big to hide.
Anna went in a different direction. But I love the fact that, you know, Manny is younger and he's
How
very...
much younger is he?
Just a little bit.
He's like 1 year, isn't he?
Like a month or a year or 10 years? Or
5
what?
years.
It's more than a year.
Oh.
Anyway, it's not about me. I think.
Oh, no.
I think that it's very helpful that he's handy, and when we travel, I'm not picking up any bags. He's the one that's hefting them overhead. He
Exactly.
throws the garbage out.
Right.
He does the heavy stuff.
Sorry, Sunny, but you can't cross-examine karma. Still, Gutfeld and Tyrus provided the catharsis America didn't know it needed. In a world where double standards reign supreme and sanctimonious finger-pointing has become a professional sport, watching the mighty stumble is more than satisfying, it's practically therapeutic. Will Sunny recover? Probably. The View has a long shelf life for its host scandals, as long as they vote the right way. She might even rebrand this as a learning experience and do a TED Talk titled When Justice Hits Close to Home. Until then, the memes will keep rolling, the internet will keep laughing, and Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus will keep circling the hypocrisy like vultures with punchlines. Because when you spend your career handing out moral judgments, it's only a matter of time before the gavel swings back. And in Sunny's case, it swung hard enough to knock the smug right off her highlight reel. So next time The View serves up another moral lecture, remember, even the loudest voices can choke on their own script, especially when Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus are holding the receipts and the punchlines. Because if this is how Sunny handles legal crises, we can't wait to see how she handles daytime ratings.